Seeing as we're halfway through 2021, let's go back to the dumpster fire that was 2020, but it wasn't all bad. A ton of great games were released, and the next generation of consoles, if you were able to get one that is. After seeing my list, you may wonder why certain games that were highly talked about and sold well aren't on here. It's simply because I either wasn't interested in playing them, or I did and it wasn't one I would eagerly play again and recommend to others. So, here are my ultimate top games of 2020, 8 in all. With Crash's successful resurrection with the Insane Trilogy and Nitro Kart Refueled, Crash returns in a completely original title that takes place after the third game with Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time. It's funny because the subtitle acknowledges both the decades-long wait for the official fourth game, sorry Wrath of Cortex, and the game's time-traveling elements. Crash 4 has a new look for the environments and characters with greater cartoony style that I didn't like at first, but now I actually prefer it compared to the Insane Trilogy. The game improves upon the Insane Trilogy with tweaks to the formula that should make landing on platforms easier and offers a variety of different characters to play as, each with their own style. But like any Crash game, this doesn't mean that it's any easier. It gets very difficult in certain levels, especially towards the end, but you can tell a lot of care and effort went into the game, and the formula doesn't feel stale with the new addition of maps that allow Crash and Coco to use special abilities. The success of Resident Evil 2's remake made a remake of Resident Evil 3 a no-brainer. While RE3 was more of a miss than a hit, I actually prefer it over RE2. You still had elements of backtracking, but its more linear approach and shorter playtime made it more enjoyable for me. Plus, a nod to events that would happen in RE2 is a nice reward for playing both games. While RE2 didn't allow players to avoid zombies unless they had a grenade or a knife to get out of the way, Jill's able to roll out of the way, adding player choice rather than being forced to walk into danger. On top of that, seeing Jill suffer from PTSD from the events of Resident Evil 1 had its shocking moments. Of course, RE3 isn't without its faults, which seems to have more than it should. The remake is bundled with Resident Evil Resistance, which is a great concept, but the game is so unbalanced that it's impossible for new players to really make an effort in playing. Plus, new content barely lasted half a year. While there's a list of unlockables to keep players playing, there isn't enough extra post-release content to want further play like RE2. It may seem like there's more negatives than positives about the game, but Resident Evil 3 is a game I have happily replayed many times. Seeing different parts of Raccoon City not shown in RE2 and a more grounded story with a freaky looking nemesis brings much life to the game. Astros Playroom is the first game and the must-play game you need to play when picking up a PlayStation 5. It perfectly introduces players to the PS5's capabilities, and still to this day, it's one of the best uses of the DualSense controller that I have ever experienced. The different platforming abilities aren't complicated, and the nods to the PlayStation icons of past and present with collectible PlayStation hardware put a smile on my face every time. As someone who never played the Playroom or the VR Astro game, Astro's Playroom is an excellent entry into a new PlayStation staple. Was Spider-Man Miles Morales overpriced? Yes. A $10 to $20 decrease would have helped its reputation, but nevertheless, it's still a good game and doesn't feel like overblown DLC to me. It's more on the lines of Infamous First Light or Uncharted Lost Legacy. Full games but smaller experiences. The change in protagonist doesn't feel like a simple cut and paste version of Peter Parker. Miles has his own abilities, movesets, and drama. Even when he swings through a snow-covered, Christmas-decorated New York City, it's unique to his character. And the complex contrast between his personal life and his duty to become his own Spider-Man is a perfect blend. Personally, I enjoy the semi-sequel a lot more than I enjoyed the first. So, fingers crossed, we'll get to see Peter and Miles team up in the Spider-Man sequel. Final Fantasy and I have always had a difficult relationship. It's a series I try to get into, but with little to no luck. It was either the characters I couldn't get into, or the confusing story, but ultimately it comes down to the gameplay. Turn-based really isn't my go-to. I've attempted playing 10, the 13 trilogy, and 15, but could never get sucked into the universe. Somehow, Final Fantasy VII Remake changed all that. Even without playing the original, this first part of a larger story was welcoming to a newcomer like myself. Characters stand out with bold personalities and styles of their own. Combat is satisfying and easy to use with its hack and slash inspired style. Though confusion sat in for me towards the end of the story, I'm still very much looking forward to the second part to see what Square Enix has in store for veteran and new players. Sometimes we all need that one game that lets us sit back and relax from the constant shootouts, virtual murder, and emotional toll these video game stories bring. Sackboy Big Adventure is by no means a simple game. Levels and challenges range from easy to hard, but all the charm found in Little Big Planet's present. Of course, there's a reason why Sackboy Big Adventure isn't considered a Little Big Planet game. The shift from 2.5D to a full 3D platformer and the removal of Create are means for a title change. But don't let the title change fool you. Sackboy Big Adventure doesn't forget its roots. There's plenty of costumes and collectibles to unlock. Up to 4 players can join in on a heartwarming story with a variety of new gadgets and moves. Plus, the surprise of popular songs integrated in certain levels brought a huge smile to my face. The Last of Us Part 2 is probably one of the most controversial games in modern history. You would think the blood, gore, and torture would be the causes, but no, it's the choices of the story, a tale of revenge and how it's never-ending cycle for each party involved that cause a wave of hate, splitting the fan base in half, with some fans going overboard into never wanting to buy another Naughty Dog game again. While I think that's complete overkill, I enjoyed The Last of Us Part 2 over its first entry. The Last of Us Part 2 is a marvel, one I had a hard time putting down in my almost constant 2 days of playing, only quitting for sleep. There are huge improvements on the first game, gameplay-wise, and even if you don't approve of the story, you can't disagree that the environments are simply stunning. Every single detail added to the game is incredible. Seattle is stunning in lush greenery, haunted by its quiet eeriness as danger lurks around every corner. And while I would have structured Ellie's and Abby's story differently for a variety, rather than half of a game, seeing the repercussions each of their tales have on one another is what I like to see in complex stories. I'm eager to see what a third part would involve, and maybe even a spin-off focusing on Abby and Liv. If it weren't for my number 1 pick, The Last of Us Part 2 would have been my top game of the year, but nevertheless, I had neutral expectations for Ghost of Tsushima. It's a historical setting that could either be exciting or rather boring. I typically play most first-party games Sony published, so this was a no-brainer. Plus, I have a huge admiration for Japan and its culture. In the opening moments of the game, I was completely blown away and immediately was hooked. The inspiration from old samurai films mixed with some parkour abilities from Infamous, combined with a wide variety of skills and weapons, was perfect. The island of Tsushima is beautifully created. Each section is different than the others and memorable, a problem a lot of other open world games have. Not only is Jin the star of the game, but also his allies. They're rather important with their own stories in the form of quests, making some of them my most favorite characters to learn about. Jin goes from being a simple samurai to a hero of the people as he turns his back on traditional ways, learning that sometimes you have to break the rules to protect people, becoming the legendary Ghost of Tsushima in the process. With an Iki Island expansion coming, Ghost of Tsushima isn't going away anytime soon. So there we have it, my top games of 2020. It was a disastrous year for us all in different ways, but it was a good year for video games to keep us at ease. And I really hope 2021 is a better year for you all so far. So what are your top games of 2020? Let me know in the comments, and while you're at it, please like and subscribe. I put out new videos every week. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.